Thank you for joining us on this important panel discussion on deduplication challenges and solutions in the realm of ABIS, the Automated Biometric Identification System. My name is Ravi Mysore. I will be the moderator of this panel. Before we get to the introduction, the biometrics play such an important role in ensuring the integrity, trust, efficiency of national ID systems. And today we will talk about how biometrics helps deduplication, which is one of the most critical component of an ABIS system. Okay, and let me ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we will get started.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Rahul. I'm the co-founder CTO of TechFi. We are primarily a biometric company which does all modalities. And as a person, I've been involved with a lot of large programs. Privileged to be, doing at least 1.7 billion people. So I'll probably share some knowledge based on that. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Antoine. I'm sales director of GenKey. GenKey is a Dutch company which is specialized in biometric system, turnkey solution from enrollment to deduplication and adjudication for government project principally. Core business is mostly related to elections and national health insurance system. We work mostly in African countries, delivering turnkey solutions for government.
My name is Antonello Mincone. I'm a business development director for Neurotechnology. Neurotechnology makes biometric algorithms for the fingerprint, face, iris, voice, palm prints, and we integrate it in different type of solution, ranging from ABIS and SDK and smart card technologies. I'm personally working in the company from 18 years. I have supervised several products and projects, including recently the integration of our ABIS solution for the other system.
Good morning, everyone. David Cohen from Thales. So I've been involved in the biometrics industry for close to 20 years now. And I'm currently taking care of civil identity solutions at Thales. So basically it's full end-to-end solutions from enrollment, identity management, of course, the biometric engines, and also all the issuance parts, so digital identity or physical issuance of documents.
Morning, everyone. I'm Shiv Gupta from Ernst & Young, and since last 3 years, I've been part of EY and been supporting, digital identity project, national level projects in Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Before that, I was part of the Aadhaar program. I was the AG Assistant Director of the technology and led the Aadhaar 2.0, which is the tech refresh for the Aadhaar for next 7 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the goal today is to understand the challenges of deduplication faced by these industry experts, and so we will talk about how to plan for a deduplication program, how to ensure uniqueness of biometric data, also put in place the various adjudication mechanisms, and ensuring high accuracy and performance, and also continuous monitoring and improvement of the ABIS over time to make sure that we are constantly addressing the evolving threats and program needs. Okay, so let's talk about again, there are many country representatives that are probably in the process of evaluating, planning, evaluating, piloting the ABIS systems. And let's start with the understanding, how do you plan for a deduplication program, right? What considerations should be taken into account when you start thinking about, okay, I need a deduplication program, for my ID program, right? So, Shiv, if you can start from that for you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ravi. For a country when they start embarking on a national ID project, first thing which comes to their mind is how do they ensure that it is going to be unique identity, because a national identity is a foundational identity based on which all the other functional or so-called the sectoral identities are based on. So ensuring uniqueness is essential, and the heart of the system becomes the deduplication engine. Now, when we say that it is the heart of the system, so deduplication, we have come across a few cases where even biometrics is not used. So the first challenge is whether to use biometrics for deduplication or not to use biometrics. It sounds little out of place that you can have deduplication without biometrics. But there are cases where like especially island nations where the input ingress and outgress are controlled. You actually know each one of the person who is staying there. They are all documented. Each vital stat is recorded. So there it is possible to have deduplication even without biometrics. But challenge comes when you have countries where borders are not that secure and there is a movement, cross-border movement, and we need to have the biometrics for using deduplication. That's the time we need to discuss, okay, biometrics going to be used, then which all biometrics modalities to be used. We capture face, we capture fingerprints, how many fingerprints, we need to capture iris, and whatever modalities we include, we have to also keep in mind the associated cost which will get incurred due to the terminal devices which will be required. Those devices needs to be compatible to the system which is going to install. So these are the various factors, while during the planning phase, one takes call and decides that what biometrics, no biometrics, which all modalities to use, and what are the various best practices prevailing in the world for what type of modalities to be used. So
thank you, Shiv. David, do you want to add something to that? Specifically around ABIS, how do you select an ABIS, or at least how do you...
So maybe to follow up, so after the first assessment that you mentioned, for me, the following part in the cornerstone of a success of such project is the procurement process. And clearly for me, there are a few topics that are essential. Maybe mentioning a couple of ones. So making sure to choose a company able to deliver such solutions. We're talking about critical solutions for a government. So experience. So, okay, everyone here will have a very high experience in such type of projects. Financial health of the company and such. And clearly, during this procurement phase have a very long-term vision while writing the tender. So, for example, thinking about the next steps, not only the delivery of the system, but all the maintenance and support over time, and also exit strategies. Because for me, this is key for the future of the system, is how you can exit from a contract with a system.
Okay, thank you, David. That's a great segue to move into the next question, which is primarily how do you ensure uniqueness using biometric data? Rahul.
I think that's the million or millions of dollars of questions, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so uniqueness, already established that biometrics helps you, establish that uniqueness. What we have seen over time is that the biometrics have evolved, and there is a lot of questions. Again, just touching quickly to the question that you asked, Shiv, is how do you decide? There's a lot of parameters to play. Yeah, size of the population, the culture. Because you'll find it funny that in some cultures people will hesitate to give their iris. They think you're stealing their soul or something. Yeah, and there could be so many questions that have to be factored in, saying that what is the cost, what is the culture, what is the size of the population, and then come up with an idea of collecting biometrics. The other thing we always say, more the merrier. So if you can capture as many possible modalities, try to do it, because you have one chance to bring that person to the enrollment station. So try to get as much as you can, if possible. of course within the realms of security, privacy, and you do not capture more than what you need. As systems evolve, people are thinking that how do I reduce my cost of capture, and things are getting more edge-based and mobile devices. So capturing things like face, fingerprints, contactless is evolving. I also am becoming a big proponent of capturing voice because it may not be really good for one-to-end deduplication of millions of people, but it really comes in handy for one-to-few at the end, and also for authentication use cases. Yeah, and I think culturally also it's very easy, right? Because you can say just hail the nation of your name of your country and say I love my country, and people will happily say it, and you got 3 samples. So by using multimodal fusion technologies and whatever is at your hand, you can really architect a great system that can help you to uniquely identify people.
Thank you. Antoine?
I fully agree to what has been said. I mean, the more modalities, obviously, the better, because this is what ensures that a person can be properly identified. This is how you ensure that nobody is twice on the central database. There is also an additional component. You were referring to the cultural environment, and one of the things that we have to deal with, especially as we are working in Africa, is also the quality of the quality of the parameters we can actually collect, in particular related to fingerprints, because you have not only in Africa, but you have countries in which people are usually like farmers using tools, and the problem you will have is that the quality of the fingerprint will be strongly damaged. So you will need obviously to have additional modalities so you can ensure the person can be really identified and verified properly. So, but bottom line is I agree to what has been said by my colleague here. Yeah.
Antonello, anything to add?
Maybe not much, just that, of course, the biometrics is providing a high degree of accuracy in finding the uniqueness of the person. However, every biometric system is still making a very small error, but is still making error. So it's necessary to have in place also alternative system for making manual revision of case that the biometric system cannot solve automatically. So this, I think, is also a very important thing to plan also at the capturing stage to ensure that all the data are captured properly and with good quality.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, again, planning is such an important activity of a deduplication program. Again, right from procurement process all the way to the modalities, the cultural aspects, the cost aspects of devices and the geography. I mean, there are so many things that need to go into, that need to be considered to effectively plan and implement and operationalize an effective deduplication program. So the next question is around deduplication. Again, only systems or computer systems need not do deduplication. Humans also do deduplications in the sense, when there are matches or matches determined by the system, usually it gets verified by a manual verification mechanism, right? So where human operators are determining whether the biometrics of 2 enrollments are a match or not, right? So what strategies should be considered in terms of workload versus throughput? I mean, there are so many factors that need to be probably considered in determining how do you effectively implement a manual verification system. Antonello, maybe you can start.
Yeah, I think first of all, the initial point is that every biometrics need to be matched by the system, meaning that if you have fingerprint, face, and iris in the system, you should match every single fingerprint, the face, and both the iris. We have seen in the past, for example, systems that were matching biometrics in a sequence, for example, matching initially the iris, and then only if the iris was matching the fingerprint was going to be matched. This, of course, is not going to be effective because if the quality, for example, of the iris capture was bad and was not providing a match, there was no way later on to match with fingerprint. And in this way, you can later on, when you have a very strong match, automatic match, the case that are going to manual adjudication gives to you the ability to solve not only the simple case, when, for example, all the modalities are matched. But even, and I think most important nowadays, cases where there are anomalous match, where, for example, only a single fingerprint is matched. This could be done because, for example, there's been a mistake by the operator, or this could happen because there has been a sophisticated impersonification attack to the system where multiple persons were mixing their own biometrics to create new identities. So I think the base is to have a very strong ABIS system that match all the modalities, and later on, when some suspicious case is found and is going to adjudication, to have the tool to visually analyze each single biometric instance and each single results of each biometric instance, as well as the combined results of the multiple instances.
Thank you. David, can you talk about some of the the training and other aspects of verification?
Actually, so I totally agree with what you said about we need to match all the biometrics in parallel. It's not one then the other, etc. And that's for me critical. Talking now about the human part, so manual verification is a lot of workload. So clearly there needs to be an important work at the beginning of each project to set the right thresholds within the system to make sure that we reach the right level of automation in the system, so that we minimize the workload of the operators. So that's first thing. Second thing for me is that these resources, these human resources, are quite critical for a country. Normally there are not that many people in each country that have the experience and the capabilities to do so. So it's key to think about that in such projects. Making sure that you have the right resources, that they are properly trained, and that, okay, it's life, there will be turnover, so keep training more and more people so that when other people change positions, you still have experienced operators able to perform correct manual adjudications, which are critical for the operations of the system.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of words here. So when you talk about capital investment of a project, right, you have to plan, and based on the accuracy of the algorithm, you can predict how many of the records could potentially go for manual adjudication. So just throw in numbers, right? You could say 5 people working 8 hours a day or something. But what you are not planned for, all these anomalies that they said, and it could be somebody trying to impersonate, or it could be a genuine mistake. As, a teenager coming in showing his grandfather how to enroll, and the fingerprints are captured. And suddenly you have a mix of biometrics. So these are the ones that you do not see coming through. And we have come across programs where suddenly, there is an influx of records that are going into manual adjudication, and it was never planned for, right? And then you find out that was because somebody was ingesting records that already existed, or there was a new phenomena that, they suddenly said, oh, we need to enroll everybody who's over 80, and everybody's bringing them, and something is going on, or operators showing it. So from an investment perspective, you should have to keep some room of growth, because if you planned for something, there is definitely going to go wrong, and depending on how you have designed it, I'm sure that you'll always run into those issues.
So Ravi, just to add functional point to it, what is like, when a country goes for manual adjudication, so generally it is multi-stage, when you talking about, because the skill set, human resources required to do that. And why multi-stage? Because one should not be dependent just on one human decision whether to deny identity to a person. So manual adjudication becomes very essential to ensure inclusiveness, that nobody is denied the identity which he has applied for. Because imagining a remote person not getting an identity because of a human error. So multi-stage, so that if one person gives a decision, it needs to be reviewed, and if even the reviewer is in a doubt, he may seek is a second opinion on a different operator, because at the end of the day, it is the human who is giving his decision on that.
Thanks. Thanks, Shiv. So the next topic is going to be about building large systems, either through templatization of available or enrolled records, or through migration. Okay, Antonello, you went through one of the biggest retemplatization efforts recently at Aadhaar. Can you share some experience around it?
Yeah, I think that, of course, it's very complex in terms of scale, but I would say that the process there has been linear because the data were more or less homogeneous between the people, meaning that you have like 10 prints, you have face, you have the iris, you have already quite strong system that was performing before the deduplication. But I think that apart from ADAR, we see nowadays a lot of other system where we have demanded to perform migration that could be, of course, at smaller scale, but more complex in terms of topology. I'm referring, for example, to the fact that I'm personally working with even now, like on a couple of projects where initially was captured only 2 finger and 1 face. So in this case, you don't need only to make the templatization part, but to make also some deduplication part, and you need also to somehow to plan how this new system will expand later on to accommodate 10 fingerprint for the new system. But in general, when the templatization is done, we should, of course, the new templatization is done, we should look at the quality of the data that we have, because sometimes we found really some data that it's completely unusable, and it's maybe better even not to use in the deduplication process because we would provide a lot of false positives. You should, of course, check in case you had in the previous system some duplicate, eventually if the migration process allow in the time frame to perform a new deduplication, because anyway we are evolving with the algorithm. So nowadays algorithm can find duplicates that maybe 10 years ago were not able to find. And again, the new system that you will create with the new data that you have migrate should be able to accommodate further scaling up of the system.
Thank you. So Antoine, typically, when what we have seen in programs and most programs is, there is a huge surge of enrollment in the first, initial periods, and when you size the system, the ABIS and procure, there is a huge hardware requirement, and then there is a gradual slowdown of the hardware requirement. So what are the best practices to manage such scaling issues? Yeah.
Okay, planning.
That's true.
Anticipating.
Yeah.
You have to work on scenarios. So basically, you will take into account how many people I am expecting to enroll, because for some project you don't know beforehand if there will be all population, fraction of it, depends on the season, depends on the purpose of the registration process, whether it is ID card, which is mandatory, or election, which is not mandatory. You have to select also the infrastructure. You have to take into account the network capacity in the country, the building facilities as well, whether there is power supply, not power supply. Do you need a DR site, not a DR site? Is it a secondary production site or not? But if we come really to the ABIS part, it's all about anticipation and knowing exactly how many parameters are you going to collect, whether we are talking about 10 fingerprints, whether we are going to talk about face portrait, irises, picture, biographic information as well, because it's important in terms of data storage. And once you have this information, basically you are looking for the appropriate servers. Generally, we use code servers, so easily accessible to the customer, easy to maintain. But that we have obviously to think and consider about how many storage capacity we need, how many processors, the RAM and so forth. So, but once you have in mind more or less the number of people you expect to register, the modalities you are planning to have, the target in terms of deduplication, because that's important as well. It's not the same if you're doing real-time deduplication or if you do it at the end of the enrollment process. Based on that, you can plan on what is the accurate hardware, the accurate setup, and the accurate configuration for the project to go as expected. After, obviously, as it is mentioned, there is the scalability issue. The scalability should be envisioned, because obviously the type of hardware or the type of server you will request will be different, whether you need it just for a one shot or something on the long term. So all of this is really part of the planning.
Okay, thank you. So Rahul, in terms of scalability, does the biometric modalities matter, or how? What are they quite linear?
No. So you have asked. Well, a very interesting question. Let's be pretty. So before I even go there, right? So there is going to be a shift in the perception of the governments, going back to the hardware, right? I know it's a little far-fetched, but we have seen initiatives from cloud providers coming and saying that we are happy to set up government clouds in those countries, right? Now, depending on the size of the country, one could potentially address the issue of hardware cost by leveraging cloud-based deployments. Of course, it is very common now in the Western world. For example, a lot of our US customers run on AWS Government Cloud, which is a special cloud meant for governments. So, of course, coming into Africa and Asia, it's going to take its time, but that could be one of the things that you could anticipate.
Better scaling.
For better scaling and reducing your operating costs, right? And going back to the biometrics question, things have evolved over time, right? We have seen the decline of face, and then again going back to the becoming the king of biometrics because of the invention of AI or use of AI. We are now seeing that the AI is being used for fingerprints and is also for the iris. It's amazing that how it used to be that iris was the fastest algorithm, the most accurate, and now suddenly face is the fastest, and then fingerprints are getting the same speed. To the point that if you go look at the NIST PFT reports, they don't even know how to report a 0 nanosecond. So the algorithms are getting super fast, which also means the matching strategies are basically coming together to the point that they are becoming linear in a way. Of course, you have 2 iris, 1 face, and 10 fingerprints, so it scales based on that. But there are multiple strategies the ABIS vendors come up with to figure out what is the best configuration that will give you the best accuracy. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So let's talk about continuous improvement. So the ABIS, the deduplication is a permanent program, and the ABIS needs to be continuously monitored, managed, and kept up to date with against evolving threats. I mean, what is the and also with there was a mention of algorithmic bias in an earlier session. So how do you what kind of technical and regulatory or legal frameworks exist to manage a continuous improvement of an ABIS deduplication program within a country? Like, have you implemented any, any such frameworks? Have you put any such frameworks in place that will allow us for a continuous feedback and an improvement mechanism for an ID program? Any takers? Yeah.
I'll start it quickly.
Yeah.
So we have seen again the evolution of biometrics, right? There were days where you would implement a biometric systems and not touch it for 10 years. There were 2 reasons, of course, commercial reasons, and also improving algorithms was a very tedious task by engineers, and you would have human engineered algorithms. They were spending time and coming with a new version. With the use of AI, that things is changing super quickly. Now you can come up with a new algorithm in 3 months and you have an improved version. Now, does that mean you go and start to redo the templatization of the records? Probably not, because it's not only the algorithm that has to be changed, but also the effort that go behind doing all this, right? There's professional services and operational cost. And now, because AI has also done this good thing, it also opens up a Pandora's box, because you have trained AI based on what it has seen. If you come up with a new modality which is different from the standard modalities, or if there was some variation, there is a slight chance that the algorithms might not perform as expected. Just to throw an example, that if the algorithm was purely trained on a touch scanner, slap scanner, and if you threw in a contactless fingerprint at it, it will perform, but its performance will be degraded a bit. So do you go and train a new algorithm and deploy a new algorithm? That's the question.
Okay.
So I guess to just quickly wrap it up is, there is going to be a new perspective of how you monitor the systems, and then do you really jump in and say, is it worth going and changing the algorithm?
Okay. Yeah.
So just to add a couple of points, that you mentioned continuous feedback. So, the manual adjudication is a very potent tool of source of feedback.
Yeah.
And the continuous feedback from there, and even from the fraud management system. So these 2 subsystems, if there is a mechanism which is well established to give feedback to the ABIS for its continuous improvement, that really helps.
Maybe just to add, so actually there was a panel yesterday talking a lot about fraud management, and actually there was a very good point related to that. So continuous improvement, and Rahul touched it. we need to keep these systems improving and while they are operational. So maybe two things here also to keep in mind is making sure to have a platform that, while remaining operational, is able to upgrade its algorithms and create the templates, so that you can still operate the system while updating the tech, as it's moving very fast. And I think that one key element there is actually a contractual element, not only about because these projects are not only about technology. So making sure to have the right contracts put in place to ask for the vendors for these constant evolutions in terms of algorithms over time.
Okay, thank you. Antonello, anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah, so I substantially agree that the ABIS itself should have a software infrastructure that support the management of those upgrades in terms of algorithms. One thing that at least we see in the research, on which we should be very careful, is that when you mix data from different algorithms, like template from different algorithms, because sometimes you can get results that are worse than the one that you would get if you will only use the old algorithm. So this process of upgrade should be done in a very careful way. So you should have like some software that support this upgrade, potentially minimizing the cost of the additional hardware that allow to perform the process. And apart from this, anyway, in the adjudication part, you can still eventually fine-tune the system in order still to improve the system without really changing the algorithm.
Okay, thank you. So the key takeaway here is that of course, continuous improvement is necessary, but again, it is very much data dependent. We have to keep an eye on how the system was initially tuned and how it needs to be updated, but also the feedback mechanisms through manual adjudication and other channels need to be established. Okay. Again, no panel discussion is complete without talking about frauds and deepfakes. I'll let you guys take a shot at, is there any, of course, you would want, liveness check and other things to happen at the edge where the data is being collected. But just curious, does ABIS has any technical capabilities to at least flag certain records that are potentially fraud or, have deepfake elements in it?
Let me take a first stab at it. Usually, the ABIS systems are defined or designed to handle data that has been trusted already because of efficiency and cost reasons, right? Are there algorithms out there to detect deepfakes? Yes, we are also building some, and it's a cat and mouse and virus, antivirus kind of a thing, right? You build something and then somebody's going to come up with a new model, and again, AI here is a trouble because you can really build quick, algorithms, GANs to create deepfakes. So I still recommend that, in principle, any kind of deepfake detection should be done at the front end because you're distributing the cost of doing that analysis at the front and the edge, and the edge computing power is more, cost effective than trying to do back end. Now, if there were some reasons that you by design couldn't trust the front end or the edge enrollment clients, then you might have to deploy some services at the back end to detect such anomalies or attacks, right? And again, these are deep fakes, people who don't exist on this planet, and not to be confused with presentation attack, which is liveness detection. And we have already started to see some of these issues in some of the programs where people are becoming genius, and figuring out how to do injections and put fake images in there.
Ravi, sorry.
No, I'm just, I fully agree to what you said. Happily, we don't have to deal too much ourselves about this type of situation because we are mostly into in-presence and in-persons projects. So we have the person in front of us. But obviously, as you rightly mentioned, the main threat that AI represents is the accessibility to the tools. So right now you were mentioning that there can be some cases in which somebody will create a fake profile or fake identity. There are some people doing business out of it. It's very expensive to get a fake profile, but these technologies are getting more and more available to everyone. And it will be extremely important for the ABIS provider. We are not into remote technologies yet. We are not really interested in actually, but there will be a very interesting development in the future for those companies doing remote biometrics in the way to counterfeit these potential threats. But it's AI is also taking us to consider the whole security aspect. Not only the fact that the biometrics can be counterfeited or can be faked, but also the data privacy and how the data can be stolen or the data can be used by people to train systems, AI trained system to actually create this AI profile. And this, in exchange, is our responsibility to protect the data and make sure nobody can text them. And that's also another challenge. We were talking about how we can improve the algorithm, but in fact, a huge part of the improvement we are doing is on security of the data. And that's also something we have to be extremely aware of, because this is also a very important part of the project, because we are dealing with citizens' data.
Ravi, just to add a couple of points, fraud management system is essential to any ID authority, and it requires not resources in terms of a software and application which can help and human resource also were trained to detect this. In addition to this, what is also essential is that there needs to be a legal framework for it, right? You may detect thing, but then what do you do further? Right, so legal framework is very essential in terms of the ID law. It must have those provisions, and even the personal data protection laws. So those needs to be in place, and then only it's worth investing so much of applications and human resource to doing that kind of an activity.
Thank you, Shiv. Any questions from the audience?
So I have a question regarding deduplication errors. So two kinds of errors that can occur. One is false positive, basically identifying somebody as a duplicate, and the other one is false negative, missing out some duplicates. So what is the present error rate in identifying false positive? Because even a small percentage can mean a large number of manual adjudication to be done. And are there any studies being done on the occurrence of false negatives, because missing out duplicates within the system is also a potential problem?
Oh, okay. I think there is no silver bullet. For the false positives, it's of course very obvious. If you find a false positive, reject an ID, people come and cry and they're going to complain. A fraudster trying to apply for a fake ID gets an ID, is going to go be happy, is never going to talk about it. So you'll never mostly never find falsely issued IDs. But then you also have to think from the program's perspective. Usually, inclusion allows that, right? So, but typically, there is no rule of thumb. But I tend to say that in a given population, about 10% of the population tries to do something to get a fake ID. Most of 90% of the population could be genuine, right? And of course, there could be cases where it's not because of intentional attempts, but they just don't understand and they say, because I didn't get my ID, let me go apply for it again, yeah? But most of the times, even if you take a rule of thumb saying that 10% of the people are fraudster by nature, they're trying to get a duplicate ID, the algorithms will, let's say, bring it down to a certain rate. So I would say that if depending on how many modalities you have used, how you have structured it, there is no 100% accurate system, right? There will be people with some fake IDs out there. If somebody says, I stopped it 100%, they are lying, yeah? But the job of the system and then the architects and the designers end to end is to reduce that down to a non-noticeable number. But there will still be IDs in the wild, we'll never find out there are fake IDs there. They'll never complain.
And maybe just to make full clear, the role of manual adjudication is exactly to detect those cases that eventually the algorithm is not be able to correctly classify and to be solved by a human person. And I think from this perspective, you also understand that the difference in accuracy between two different algorithms matters, because the most you have an accurate algorithm, the lower is the number that will go to manual adjudication, the lower is the cost that you need to spend for operators to solve those cases. And from the other side, there is also the cost that these errors could have, because you could have like some project where, I would not say the type of the project, but you could have some project where these errors could be perfectly acceptable because it would still be manageable by some other way of means.
Sorry, Krish from MOSIP. This is on manual adjudication. How can countries really plan for manual adjudication in terms of the number of adjudicators, the skill set of the adjudicators, what should be the workflow of adjudication, what kind of a software to be deployed? I'm sure that adjudication will keep happening again and again and again because that's a very critical role that they have to play. What are your thoughts on best practices that countries should adopt?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the manual adjudication, you usually see it in steps. So you can have operators that have different level of training. So you can start to compare, for example, even just visually the photo, and then you can move to some more advanced level, for example, comparing the fingerprints. But of course, yes, these require like to have an expert. So it's really necessary to see if the country has the resource to make this kind of training and to have enough number of operators that could solve those cases manually. But in fact, nowadays, even from the algorithm point of view, we are not only working on algorithm for automatic matching, but even on algorithm that would eventually facilitate the role of adjudicator in solving those cases. Just to give to you a very simple example, like when you need to compare visually to fingerprint, and you may want, for example, to look between two minutiae, you want to have like to count the number of ridges. So you can have an automatic implementation to count those ridges that would eventually help the operator to take a decision and to solve in most efficient way the case.
Yeah, so Krish mentioned about workflow. So workflow is very important. So the manual adjudication needs to be multi-stage, and manual adjudication is the last stage where if it is no, then we are losing out on inclusion. So workflow needs to be very carefully planned. Needs to be multi-stage. At least 2 or maybe 3 humans are involved before a final decision is taken.
Yes, I have a question. How you, in terms of the large company in the world, for example, United Healthcare was hacked just not too long ago. So how you pass the challenge or have a solution in terms of security for client for their privacy? I know you mentioned culture earlier, but specifically how you pass that challenge in terms of your client. If they, I know most of them don't know anything about, like I mentioned, the largest company in the world can be hacked. Nothing is safe. So how you convince or pass that challenge?
Well, you've touched a lot of sensitive topics. You've touched privacy, you've touched security. It all starts with security by design. So how good are your ABIS systems already secure in terms of the architecture and algorithms implemented? Where is your data? How is it encrypted? Is it encrypted in flight and all that stuff? Then comes the onus on the data center management, because cybersecurity is the first firewall, is the defense mechanism. This is again from the aspects of security. Now the good part is copying biometric data is super slow. So you cannot just go in and put a USB drive and take 30 million people or 100 million people, right? If somebody is getting in there and copying it, if you do not have the right network tools to detect it, that over the last 1 month somebody's copying my data, sorry about that cybersecurity team, right? So of course you have to invest in the right infrastructure. Now coming about privacy, it's a very interesting topic. It again depends on the country's policies. Every country is now going for data protection acts and privacy acts. But when it comes to foundational systems, it's a little bit different, because you're bringing all the data in, data minimalization, and how do you maintain the access to the data through the operators, and you're not selling it out, or what access policies you have for different institutions in the country, right? Every country has a different policy. Somebody says it's only civil, somebody mixes civil and criminal. And again, it could be like a 2-hour topic. The last thing that I will just mention, which I intend to say is that all these algorithms and the traditional implementations were based on some concept of biometric template creation and probabilistic matching and the algorithms, which by the way, again thanks to AI, are reversible. If I get enough data samples, if I get enough templates in the model, I can create an algorithm that can take a template and regenerate a face from it or a fingerprint from it. It's getting scary. Of course, this is like still research. So there is a big discussion about privacy-preserving biometrics, cancelable biometrics, revocable biometrics. To put it simple, it should be, first of all, not linkable. If I get somebody's data, I should be able to cancel it, revoke it, like resetting my password. But the challenge now, today, is that these algorithms, when you go into that domain, are not as accurate as the current algorithms. So there's going to be a lot of research dollar going into these algorithms that will try to bring these privacy-preserving algorithms or biometrics to the same level of accuracy that we have the traditional approaches. I know Antoine here, are some of the pioneers who have done this in the past. And it's really good at one-to-one level, but when it comes to one-to-N level, I think there is a very interesting journey, and some organizations like UNHCRs and UNDP and Red Cross, they're already emphasizing on privacy-preserving biometrics and deduplication systems.
Thank you very much for your presentation, all. A very quick question. Imagine a country where you have about 40% of the population under the age of 14. And as you know, such population, we don't have yet the biometric characteristic completely fully recognized by the systems. How such issue can be been resolved in different, in the legal aspect, you mentioned that during the presentation, and especially in the technological aspect.
Okay, so the question is about, did you get the question? Okay.
The duplication for this targeting population, those under 14.
14, okay, yeah, the child biometrics, right? That's the question, okay.
Thank you.
So the question is, how does the child biometrics impacts, deduplication accuracy, and how do you, manage that, handle that, right? Anybody want, any takers? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. It's a topic that we didn't discuss. It is, despite it is important with regards to civil registration and ID cards project, for example, so it's relevant. So at this point in time, actually, usually what we recommend is to have more regular enrollment or update of data for people that are underage, because obviously the fingerprints are evolving way more quicker than for adults. And also I see some interest in the new technologies that are being developed and used at the moment, like machine learning and so forth, because we will be able to create, as part of the algorithm, the potential evolution of the fingerprints or the biometric data of the person. Let's take a simple example. Some of you might have used applications like Face app, like you're submitting your picture and you can see what will be your face in 50 years from now. And basically, I mean, we will be able just to do the same with fingerprints at some point. So we will be able to have more accurate comparison for underage people, as well as we will be more accurate in estimating what would be the evolution of the fingerprint of that person, so we don't need to register it again after 2 years, after 3 years, depending on the body evolution, basically. So there are some interesting aspects to study with regards to the children biometrics. So that is a field in which there is some improvement to do, obviously, but I mean, there are quite good hopes that we will be able to improve a lot in that aspect. Antonello.
Yeah, and please also consider that nowadays it exists fingerprint algorithms that are quite tolerant to scale variation. Of course, they cannot go below, for example, the children of 6 years, but already when we are in the range 10, 12, for a number of years, they keep quite robust. And we, for example, we had a few years ago a pilot in a country in Africa with iris for very small children that has promised have shown very significant promise in terms of accuracy of recognition of children. So I think this is another reason why multi-biometric system should be considered, and particularly even the iris modality that is one of the strongest during the time.
Just one last comment, and maybe here there might be other considerations to take in place, thinking about other biometric modalities that the usual ones that we have today, finger, face, iris. There might be other ones that could be useful in that context.
Okay. So I think we are out of time, but the panel will be available. We'll hang around for 10 more minutes if you have questions. But once again, thank you a lot for this, very active participation. Thank you very much. Yeah.